what ever happened to American cinema? So much of what we see now is made for a global market. And this article, I'll post the link in the for everyone to see this. I've been talking about this for a long time. What happened to the American cinematic universe? Cold War II is a culture war too. Also, meaning also. So, I think the age of great American cinema is kind of. Oh man, I should have found a link we could read.
Is he going to mention Yuri Bezmenov and like the social attack or whatever?
Well, it's mainly about, and I think having grown up in the 70s and 80s, that was a golden age of American cinema. You had new, young, mavericks like Spielberg and Lucas and Scorsese, Coppola. Carpenter, they defined different areas of American cinema. And I feel like America doesn't have an identity, a cinematic identity, whereas other countries really do. You see you see a film from I saw an Irish horror film last week. I'll talk about it on Friday. The Damned, I did see it.
Did you love it?
It's good. We'll talk about it. It's good. Mixed for me. But I'm saying that, I grew up loving French films, and different types of cinema around the world had an identity. I don't know what the American identity is anymore.
What happened politics?
To it? Used to be action films when I was growing up. Stallone, Schwarzenegger's pro-American action films, and then superhero, and I don't know what the hell it is now.
Can a pro-American movie even get made now?
I was just about to say, there aren't very many, if any, current day pro-American movies because Hollywood doesn't like America. And
so. This is I don't know, Rob, I'd like your perspective because you grew up watching a lot of the same movies I did, and it felt like there was a distinctly American type of movie that
can Superman be American again?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know.
Chris, I think I always go back to this movie. I talk about this movie a lot, but only because I love it. 1982's The Verdict, directed by Sidney Lumet, starring Paul Newman. Paul Newman is an alcoholic, burnt out, down on his luck lawyer who ends up going against the Catholic archdiocese. And because there was a woman lost her life, or was a horrible fate befell this woman, so he has to take on the Catholic Church, and he sees this as a last grasp at redemption for him. Otherwise, his alcoholic demons will consume him forever. To me, this was you have a powerhouse American director in Sidney Lumet. You have an amazing performance in Paul Newman. You have an incredible cast. You have Charlotte Rampling. You have James Mason. It's just incredible all the way around. Nobody would make that story today. And this was a studio movie. Studios, movie making, and the audience does not exist for a story like that. And this was a movie theater film that had acolytes, and I saw the film when I was 14, and I was blown away by it. There is no audience of 14-year-olds that are going to walk in and see a movie like The Verdict and get something out of it.
Yep.
I think part of the problem with our culture is we have reverted. Americans, and it's not to rip on Americans in the sense that our culture, we have forces working against our culture on a number of different levels. And we as Americans have been completely infantilized. How many articles do you have to read about guys not growing up? I'm an example of one of them, but we don't have people anymore. Like, if you think about where America was, we had World War I, we had the Great Depression, we had World War II, we had Korea. Then, so you had, for the better part of the 20th century, there was a lot. The America that we live in today has had no hardship. We talk about, okay, there's inflation or whatever, but no one was going off to war. We didn't have Vietnam. Basically from the early 19-teens all the way up to the 1970s, America everyone knew veterans, people had been in conflicts, and that's all of the movies that we started getting, especially in the 70s, were born out of people that were either boomers or the kids of boomers that had lived through this. The assassination of John F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, the assassination of Martin Luther King, civil rights. Over the last 50 years, we've had things that have befell us, but the world is just a different place. We are a weak, soft nation that is undereducated. That is there's no level of respect. Everybody wants to do whatever they want. Everybody feels like their voice with the rise of the internet is all equal. We've had no hardship. We don't feel any responsibility to our fellow Americans. And you ask, where did American movies go? What we should be asking is, where did America go? And there can't be American movies if there's no America. And I would dare say we have watched America been taken apart. Identity politics is just one part of it. You could say what happened economically, starting with Wall Street. The Wall Street boom in the 80s has carried over. Economic policies begun by Ronald Reagan. There's so many different things that have happened, and I'm no political scientist, but look at the movies that Hollywood's put out in the last 20 years. We've now become a global marketplace, which means by definition the studios have to make movies for the lowest common denominator that doesn't even speak English.
Robert, you almost quoted Watchmen, where what happened to the American dream?
You're looking at it.
It came true. You're looking at
it. No, but I think that's where we're at. And the problem is America doesn't know itself anymore. And what our movies used to be was our films examined what it meant to be American. Whether you're watching Terrence Malick's Badland or Days of Heaven. I mean, think of Badlands. I mean, think about it, Chris. Terrence Malick comes out of the gate, he makes Badlands, and then he follows it up with Days of Heaven. If those movies came out today, nobody would care. Right. And those movies were seminal. The movies of the 70s, think about all those directors. All of it was examining where America was. Most Hollywood movies were, and I'm not saying there wasn't rom-coms and there wasn't, but even movies like Tootsie, which was a comedy, was about America and where we're at. That is gone.
Yeah, and it's those movies questioned, but they weren't anti-American per se.
No, they were delving into and they were exposing things and asking questions of the audience, and they expected the audience to rise up to their level.
We could get into this story, but I don't know if we have time right now. Does everyone? Let's get into this.
Yeah, my take is this. I mean, kind of piggybacking off what Rob said. I mean, we are living in a time too where, whether we like it or not, man, the consumption of media is just different now. You know, people consume media very different, and honestly, especially if you're talking about young people, man, they're watching YouTube. They're watching us. They're not watching movies. No. You know, they're watching Twitch. They're playing video games. They're doing almost everything but watch an actual movie, because watching an actual movie means that you have to concentrate and focus on one thing for more than 5 minutes, right? So that's kind of where things are as far as making movies for the global market, man. Well, yeah, because here's the thing. If the American people aren't going to the movies, right, if they are consumed by all these other things, then you, as a business, you have to look outward. No matter what your business is, you got to look beyond what your normal customer base is. If those customers aren't coming to support you, right? So it's kind of a weird bag, man, because it's like, yeah, you know, we could sit here and kind of preach about where things have gone, but it's just that at the end of the day, it's a consumer thing. Like people just are consuming other things now. And movies aren't one of them. Like it was when we were younger. When we were younger, movies meant everything. Are you kidding me? I'm a kid from the hood. I grew up in the hood, right? But I was still watching movies like, you know, Fellini, right? I was watching 8.5, and I was watching La Dolce Vita and things like that in the hood. So I mean, because it was a movie and because it was on, and also because we only had like 1 or 2 TVs in the house. So whatever my grandfather was watching is what we watched, you know. So, but I grew up on movies like that, and I appreciated movies like that. But we're relics, man. We're relics from another age, from another time. The kids now, don't give a shit about movies. They just don't.
That's why it's so hard to target that demographic. They really can't get a handle on it. All their stuff that's targeted towards them is trash. Like they don't know what they want because they're not interested in movies. So they really can't gauge like what those kids want. They're interested in, watching normal regular people, and that's what I see so much on TikTok and Instagram, where Gen Z is really talking about how they want authenticity in the people that they watch, which is why they lean more towards watching streamers. That's why they lean more towards watching people on YouTube. That's why they lean more towards watching content and story times on TikTok, because they're just regular people living everyday lives. They don't really care about Hollywood. They don't really care about movies because they know that that's all fake and they want authenticity. So that's why it's really hard for like Hollywood to really cater to that demographic, because
they don't want to refuse everything they've done wrong, or they don't want to admit everything they've done wrong.
I'll give you my conversation with my daughter yesterday. I'm going to a film festival. You want to come with me? Her words: "I don't care about movies anymore."
but I think here's something. The thing is, when we would watch movies, it was introspective. When you would watch a film, you were wondering, following the plight of those characters, you're always thinking about, like, how would I act in this situation? What would it mean to me if I was, and it didn't matter whether it was a female protagonist or a male protagonist. If you were watching a movie that you were swept up in, you were constantly, it was an introspective relationship the viewer has with the film. Nowadays, everything is so superficial. Nobody's introspective. Everyone is looking out. Everybody wants to be part of this or part of that, and no one's looking inward anymore. And that's why all of our entertainment is all flashy, and it's all it doesn't have. It's not. You're not looking inward anymore. Everyone's looking outward. And the problem with that is that means, by definition, you want to be included in the club. It's like FOMO of life itself. But nobody's asking themselves the tough questions. And the great movies, especially the masters that came up in the new wave, the Easy Riders, Raging Bulls filmmaking generation of the 70s, they were asking the tough questions. They were examining. Everything was an examination of who and what we are, whether it was Easy Rider or whether it was Apocalypse Now or Network or The Godfather, Dog Day Afternoon. Take your pick. I mean, any of the films that were being made by these guys and girls in the 70s, it was asking the audience to step up and look at this examination of where we're at and what do you think about it? No one's asking those questions anymore.
Well, I miss, and Rob, just having gone to Comic-Con and hanging with you there since the 90s, oddly, there was always you'd see a piece of media, TV, film, whatever, and discuss it. And we're doing this now, but I don't think people discuss. There's too much to consume.
Yeah.
And it doesn't resonate the way it used to. So I want to really spend time on the story.
I don't feel like it resonates just because the characters that they're giving us, because they're focusing on, diversity, identity, politics, all of the characters, the diverse characters that they give us have no flaws. They're not allowed to have any flaws. They're only allowed to preach. And I think that if looking back at all of the movies that we've watched that are incredible and great, a lot of those characters have flaws, which is why, as people, you're able to look at them and identify, some part of yourself with them, because they have flaws. They are human too, right? Even superheroes, a lot of time, like even the superhero movies, like they have flaws. But now these characters that they're giving us, they have no flaws. They're like perfect, and there's no way to identify and learn anything from something that's perfect. They can only get more perfect.
Yeah. The one thing that I've learned from doing comedy live, making shit up on stage, is it's not the jokes you tell, but in every scene I do, my first goal is to connect with the audience, to create a character that the audience can identify with. And that usually means they're imperfect and they're flawed people. And you just don't get that. To me, that's great storytelling, is when you can put yourself in the shoes of the protagonist and say, you know, as Rob says, what would I do in this situation? And again, that's simple storytelling, and that just says that we recognize that we're all flawed people. We all have goals and dreams that we want to accomplish, and by telling stories, we can relate to them because we've been there. No matter the gender, the race, or whatever of that character, we identify with that experience.
A couple things I want to point out that this article brings up in a veiled way is, maybe people don't know this already, other governments have their own film boards. Now, America is very driven by entrepreneurship and population of self-starters, or it used to be, right? And indie film, and film in particular, is very much motivated by a producer who goes to raise the money to get the project together. Let's do this, Alan. Let's do that. Put me at the bottom. I'm fine with that. And other countries, as you know, the Canadian Film Board, the Irish Film Board, the French Film Board. If you want money to make a movie, you have to appeal to that government, because part of what these smaller countries realize is they are exporting their culture through cinema.
Oh, but do we want government involved with our filmmaking?
Government doesn't do that in the U.S. in the open. They don't do it in the U.S. in the open, and so that's part of my what the article gets into is we've lost this American identity. The one we don't have to agree on everything, but you can point to we agree on these values.
The American cinematic universe.
Yeah, the cinematic universe of, what you've got complicated and conflicted characters, and that's good. You have questioning characters. You have John Rambo. In the first Rambo, how he was treated, you see from his perspective what he was driven to do and how he was used as a tool. And I think that I miss these movies. You could say an American movie. It doesn't have to be patriotic.
It was talking about Top Gun and like Red Dawn and, things.
Yes.
Things that South Korea or North Korea used to watch all the movies back in the day, and used to love our American macho films.
Yeah, but even if you took a movie like Easy Rider, I mean that's a movie about American life.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It has nothing to do with politics or war so much.
Yeah.
Too much, but it's just about American life.
And look, I don't want our government being involved in Hollywood, even though we all know that they are.
Yeah, they're 100%.
They are involved.
If Michael Bay does a thing that has a bunch of military and he's very pro-military, the military will help out so it can be accurately. I'm fine with that type of involvement. Right. But at least do a better job keeping it secret. And I don't need the American film department checking if it's patriotic enough.
Anyways, I want to revisit this topic and really get into it. Sorry, you're about to say.
Well, no, I was just going to say, even I think First Blood is a great example. That film, it's a great action movie. It's a literary adaptation. It's a great action movie, but Stallone, it really makes all Americans, when you watch that, question when was the last time you saw a movie about how veterans are treated?
Yeah.
And here's in an explosive action context, you saw, which is, by the way, a great action film. Stallone has never been better than he was in First Blood. It changed where his career was going. But that movie asks some really hard-hitting questions, and it makes you, even though you're watching a Stallone action movie, you don't come away with that movie without thinking about, my God, we really need to do a better job of taking care of our veterans. When was the last time somebody made a movie about the suicide rates amongst veterans in this country right now? Right. And how that was populist entertainment that was dealing with, even though you could watch it as an action film and love it, Brian Dennehy's a dirty cop, whatever, but it really had something to say in the context of a great entertainment. We don't even do that anymore, not much.
I just showed my daughter Forrest Gump, and all those references in there lost on her. She didn't know anything about these things, about Vietnam, about the civil rights movement, everything leading up to portrayed in the film. And it was like, it just amazed me that she just, I had to explain everything everything about American history from Forrest Gump.
Well, I was saying, to be fair, because of all those depictions, we do treat like even people that hated the Iraq War. We made sure to be like, well, we love the troops, support the troops, but screw all the other things.
Yeah.
The last movie I think was like Stop Loss, where we saw that people could be leaving the military and they get called, like that type of thing. But we have made a fair bit of progress in treating the troops better, at least these days.
Well, there is a movie coming out, I believe, in February, Alan, that we saw at Newport Beach. Remember?
Which one are you talking about? Oh, the Legion M movie. That one.
Yeah,
I forgot the name of
that
it.
deals with PTSD and veterans. So, yeah.
Was it good? Was it good?
It is very good.
It is very good, but it's very small indie
Stars Michael Burnham
and not very
I thought I said
mainstream.
that. Yeah,
Well, yeah, Legion M. I mean, that's a pretty small studio. So